Now, in what appears to be a terror attack, 15 trucks carting foodstuff from Niger to Ghana have been burnt at the Burkina Faso border. The driver of the lead vehicle is responding to treatment after being shot in the attack. Before now, several drivers have died in similar attacks, with over 10 Ghanaian trucks being burnt. Nana Aljima of our foreign desk has more in the following report.
The Doli route into Burkina Faso from Niger has been abandoned by long-distance trucks following heightened activities of terrorists in the area. Videos available to Joy News show many trucks burnt at the border by terrorists earlier this year.
And Burkina, at first we was passing there, and there was a Boko Haram over there. They burned our cars, so many, about 15 cars with onions. And we diverted to Benin.
Niger supplies Ghana with onions, beans, potash, cowhide, and local tea, popularly known as attire. Following the closure of the Benin border as a result of the ECOWAS sanctions against Niger, some drivers have had to consider other options. The Dambala enterprise owns 35 trucks, which have often been involved in carting food from Niger. For many days, some of the trucks have locked up in Niger. According to Masaudu Dambala, one of their vehicles opted for the Doli route, which is less preferred due to security concerns. The trucks broke security protocols after their inability to secure military escort to cross the border for many days.
They were standing there waiting for combine escort, yeah. So they were waiting for it, and then the escort is not coming. So one of the cars, that one is not our car, decided to follow the road. So when he succeeded, so the rest they say, okay, they too will try their best and see. So immediately they start going there. Those jihadist people come out, try to stop them, they refused, not knowing that there are plenty people there. So they decided to start to shoot them. So they stopped, some of them stopped, and some of them go back. Then even some drivers leave the cars and run away. So our car is in front. So when they reach there, they bend the car. The car take like 450 bags of beans. So they bend the car. And then the case is they shoot the driver, but now the driver is alive. So they burn the car, and then they burn like 3 or 4 cars. So the rest turn back and go to Niger.
So where's the driver now, and what's his condition?
Yeah, he's in Niger, but the condition is somehow better. So he's in Niger now.
One of the 3 affected trucks was carting onions bound for the Kwadaso market in Kumasi. All 330 onions in the affected trucks have rotten away after the vehicle was burnt. Masaudu Mazu counts his loss. The leading truck was transporting beans, and the next one was transporting my onions. Those were the first to be attacked. They called me later to break the news to me. I couldn't ask them any further questions. Presently, the transport and import company, Dambala Enterprise, has closed operations to Niger. 15 of their trucks are locked up in the landlocked Niger. Masaudu Dambala is worried about the situation.
If you go to harbor, anything concerning Niger, you cannot take it. So it's only Burkina that you can cross. I can tell you that this is the amount that I'm losing. I can't tell. But if I tell you that this, I will lose this, no, I can't tell. The only thing is that I see that the business is rounding down.
Many food importers in Kumasi stand the chance of losing their investments if the situation continues. For Joy News, Nana Aljima reporting.
Well, let's get more on this from security analyst Dr. Adam Bona, who's joining us via Zoom. Now, Doc, I'm grateful that you could join us this afternoon. First of all, does this qualify as a terror attack?
Well, yes. Good afternoon. Yes, it does. It qualifies as and it's been going on for a while. Is this burning of trucks by jihadists within the the call it the Burkina enclave is very rampant. And so this is not the first time I'm hearing this. I have lots of videos that sometimes some of the videos you can see 15 trucks bent on a stretch carrying items coming into this country. And so it's quite worrying, coupled with the fact that you now have this situation that we are dealing with in Niger. So obviously, and you want to take it from from a position of economic and security. If the onions and the other food items, products that are supposed to be imported into neighboring countries cannot cross, and you have the jihadists have become emboldened because 80% of Burkina Faso is literally in the hands of jihadists. So just imagine that Accra, Ghana, then it is only Accra that is in the hands of the executives or the executive. But the other regions, out of the 16, it's only Accra that you can say is in the hands of the executive. But the other 15 regions are in the hands of terrorists. That is the situation in Burkina Faso. And I think that should have been more of a concern to the sub-regional leaders. But unfortunately, that has not been their concern. Rather, they want to go in there and remove and return, Niger to civilian rule when we have Burkina Faso, Mali, and neighboring countries under attack from jihadists. I think it should be a source of concern for us.
Well, I'll come back to that. But you mentioned that 15 regions have fallen to the jihadists. Which are these 15?
No, what I'm saying is that I use Ghana as an illustration. What I'm saying is that, take for instance, Ghana. We have 16 regions in Ghana.
Yeah.
Then the executive is only found in Accra, one region. And so I used the Ghana as an illustration to say Burkina Faso, 80% of, according to UN report and AU and ECOWAS report, 80% of Burkina Faso is in the hands of jihadists or terrorists in Burkina Faso, which should be a worry to the sub-regional leaders. And so that is how severe or serious the situation is in especially Burkina Faso and some of these neighboring countries.
But if that's the case, and again, the 20% that is left is in the hands of the military that took over, why is the military not able to win this war?
Well, the military is not able to win this war because the terrorists have literally surrounded them. The terrorists have literally, if you can ask indigents of border towns that, where Burkina Faso borders are, you can talk about the Sisala area, you can talk about the Hamile area, you can talk about Boku. Sometimes I was in Burkina Faso, crossed from Hamile to Burkina Faso about 2 months ago. And as you get there, they will tell you that where they are, sometimes you can literally see terrorists in one area. You are in the part of Ghana, and indigenous terrorists on the other side. And what has made it worse is that you have the military regime in Burkina Faso has armed civilians. They've given weapons to civilians to fight off the jihadists. And some of these civilians themselves have become terrorists. And so it is worrying for the rest of us in Ghana and probably neighboring countries, because then when the terrorists come to where these civilians are who have been armed, they cross as refugees who have entered Ghana, they drop their weapons and they cross into the side of Ghana. This is how worrying the situation is. And so as far as I'm concerned, the military regime in these countries have not been able to alone fight terrorists.
Okay.
And so it is probably incumbent on ECOWAS to see how the issue of terrorism that we have in the entire sub-region, call it Nigeria to Mali to Niger to, you can name them. Terrorists, where have they not bombed except probably Ghana? And so this is how bad it is. And sometimes when I crossed with my team to the from Hamile into the side of Burkina, I spoke to officers within the Ghana area and spoke to officers within the Burkina area, and they were very apprehensive because then they said this is a place that we shouldn't be. I spoke to them and they told us that because sometimes the terrorists come very close to them and they shoot at them. And sometimes when we spoke to people around the Hamley area, including officers, what they said was that there are times you are watching on the side of the Burkina border and you see terrorists literally killing people on the side of the Burkina border.
Wow.
But you are a military officer or you're an immigration officer or a police officer within Ghana. The law does not mandate you to cross into Burkina to help them fight off the jihadist movement. And this is how close this whole thing is. Not that someone, I was there myself, spoke to, the indigents of the Hamili area, spoke to officers, the military, the immigration, and the police who are around the area, spoke to them, crossed to the other side of Burkina, and spoke to them. And they seem to be singing the same hymn. They want resources, they want collaboration, because they said that there are times when they come under attack, they have to run. And their counterpart in Ghana, they wish they could come and support them. But the Ghanaians cannot come, obviously, because once you enter, you need a certain permission or declaration to enter and go and fight this jihadist movement in that enclave. And so this is how serious the situation is. If you are not very careful, we are going to have food prices, skyrocketing. It's going to go up, and it will be difficult if we are not careful. That alone is another human security challenge, because when people are hungry, thinking becomes another thing. So we've got to tread cautiously.
But what could be the reason behind the burning of these trucks?
Well, the reason behind the burning, you should know, some of these people are ideologists. For instance, they burnt these vehicles, and it's now news, we are discussing it. So they target areas that it will make them a bit popular. And apart from that, they hit where the people will begin to revolt. Because you see, one of the things they do is to strike and make sure they leave a lot of unimaginable, what do we call it, things in your head. You begin to be fearful of your life. You begin to feel they are coming. And usually, when they come, they tell you, you've got to do A, B, C, D. They use intimidatory tactics. They would want that you would have to obey them. And so they are taking advantage of the fact that these areas have been left in their hands, and then they are doing what they are doing. Some of them are criminals. And so as they shoot and drivers run away, they cut as many as they can, the goods in this vehicle, and sell them. So you will have them actually trading. Sometimes they will steal as much as they can and cross, sometimes in bags and in tricycles, into some of the border areas to come and sell. I'm sure you know that cattle or animals from the side of Burkina Faso, they've killed people in the side of Burkina Faso, and a report that I recently intercepted and these animals found their way into some part of the Upper East region, because the owners of these animals were killed on the side of Burkina Faso, and they shepherded them across the border into Ghana. And once they sell them, they go back with the money to go and finance their act of terrorism and criminality. So they have divergent reasons, they have different reasons for doing this, depending on, for instance, this burning of vehicles and killing of people on that stretch. It didn't start today. I mean, I have, if I can forward to you a lot of videos where you can see vehicles on end. You won't see you on uncountable number of trucks that they've destroyed. So it's just not this one we are talking about. Maybe because of the situation in Niger, maybe we are beginning to pay attention. But some of us who work within the sector will tell you that this is no news. It is something that has been happening almost all the time.
Okay. But from the way you paint the picture, it's gloomy, and therefore something has to be done. For example, if someone is killing another person in Burkina Faso, and I see it in Ghana and I cannot intervene, that is something that we have to work around. So how do we as a sub-region approach this issue such that it won't escalate and even, get into a country like Ghana?
Well, I think that by now we should have had a certain arrangement. We have the Accra Initiative. The Accra Initiative involves some countries, including Burkina, and some countries. And so the areas that we have this issue with terrorism, serious, terrorist, terror issues, we should have had some arrangement, or the ECOWAS bloc should have had some arrangement where those who will man these borders would have the clearance to be able to cross into any. So you would have the ability to cross Burkina, and depending on which mile radius you are supposed, maybe you can't go beyond, let's say, 1,000 kilometers away from the Ghana border. But anything between 1 to 1,000 kilometers, if something is going on and you are part of that ECOWAS arrangement as a security officer, you should be able to go in there and help the indigents there. If you have, let's say, a Burkina soldier who is on the other side and something is happening and it has to do with terrorism, so that it is well defined, they are able to come. But at the moment, there is no such arrangement. And so when I was going into the Burkina area, for instance, I had an escort. I had a police officer who I requested to provide me escort. But when we got to the border, they said the police officer cannot cross. So I left my escort at the side of Ghana and entered. That was risky, but I left my escort because if my escort had gone with me, probably he would have been detained. But if there is an arrangement where they are trained to perform a certain dual function, if you are here, you can cross and help and do. But ECOWAS is not thinking like that. ECOWAS probably is not looking at that and seeing how countries can support one another to fight terrorism, because they come sometimes 10 kilometers, 5 kilometers, 4 kilometers to the side of Ghana, sometimes even a kilometer to that close, a kilometer away from Ghana border, or less than a kilometer away from Ghana border. But you see, the Ghanaian soldiers, the immigration officers, the police officers, they don't have the permit to go in there and do anything. And so it is an arrangement that ECOWAS should have been dealing with, because then, if you say because the military have taken over in Burkina Faso, chances are that the spillover effect will have it. And we've heard about recently. I think one of the ministers actually came out to say some terrorists, some terrorists crossed into our territory, and they arrested them, and I'm told they took them back out. They took them into the Burkina side, and you have the Burkina civilians have been armed. So if you are arming civilians, like many years ago, Al Qaeda and some of these guys were armed. Eventually, they turned the guns against those who armed them when they didn't have any job again for them to do. And so mine is that the Burkina government, or the military leaders over there, are overwhelmed. They are simply overwhelmed. And so they are now procuring weapons and, dashing them to civilians. And so it tells you that the people who are crossing into this country itself, if we are not very careful, we are going to have people who have learned to shoot, who have learned to handle sophisticated weapons, and they could turn against us. So I think there should be some arrangement amongst us as sub-regional, country members to see how can we help. So if they come very close to our border, killing people, and you can see it, sometimes they will tell you that when they kill some of their people, the corpses lie there for days before the Burkina government will come and pick them away, unfortunately.
Okay.
Those who are having lunch, my apologies. But yes, I hear they will be there, and you will see what's the name of that vultures coming down, and literally, but you can't do anything because you cannot cross. If you are a soldier or you are even a paramedic, you can't cross. So when it's happening, most of them run into the side of Ghana, but who is coming? We don't even know, because some of these people have been given weapons, they drop their weapons, and so the jihadists are now attacking more because they believe that civilians have been given weapons. So if we can surround them and we kill some, we can actually pick up their weapons and use it to fight the military leaders in Burkina and the other sub-region, the other neighboring countries.
It tells that there's more that ECOWAS has to do. I'm grateful to you, Dr. Bona, for joining us this afternoon. Dr. Adam Bona is a security analyst there. Now, still staying with security, the Chief of Naval Staff, Rear Admiral Isa Adam Yakubu, has trumpeted the role of the Ghana Navy in combating attacks and kidnappings in the Gulf of Guinea. Speaking during a media interaction ahead of the 2023 International Maritime Defense Exhibition and Conference scheduled to take place from the 29th to 30th August, he said in the year 2020, not less than 11 sailors were kidnapped with ransom paid before their release. He says Ghana has not recorded any in 2023, but rather the country's neighbors are beginning to see a resurgence in attacks.
2021, Ghana alone had not less than 6 attacks, particularly on our vulnerable tuna vessels. And not less than 11 of our sailors were kidnapped and taken to other places. And they were only rescued after they had paid a ransom. I think this was in 2020. 2021, 2022, we did not experience any such attacks or kidnapping, as he said. 2023, we have seen some resurgence, not in our country, but in some neighboring countries. A few attacks have occurred, and that is why this conference has come very, very timely. But when those things occurred, as he said, they just didn't stop because the people didn't want to come again. We had to put strategies in place. And some of those strategies were developed during some of these conferences, and then the collaboration that we had with all the countries that are coming for the International Maritime Defense Exhibition and Conference. We've been told a number of partners from across the world. We've had not less than 27, and they are still, even as at last night, countries were still confirming their participation. So you bring a large gathering of maritime practitioners, and because the sea is a maritime common, that is, you don't have physical borders at sea. So we don't go out there and say, Ghana, this is our space, so we are only interested in that. The transnational organized criminals, they come from different parts of neighboring countries, come and commit their offenses, and then they go back to where they are coming from. So we have to work together with our neighbors. And within the country, they listed a number of agencies that have some 1 or 2 time issues. And now we want an integrated one. So everybody is in his ministry, department, or agency trying to play his role. But we don't have that serious coordinating mechanism. So this National Integrated Maritime Strategy provides that mechanism for coordination and working together and having a very good governance structure. And we believe that when we do that, as I said, the vision is that by 2030, the GDP growth of that the maritime domain contributes should double. Whatever the figure is now, we want to see doubled by the year 2030. So the specific figures, as he said, will be given to you. But for the last 2 years, we haven't experienced, particularly the kidnapping, attacking with arms on ships, and kidnapping of sailors has not happened in the last 2 years. So that is an achievement, and there are strategies we have put in place to achieve that.
Now, Ghana will be launching its National Integrated Maritime Strategy next week at the 2023 International Maritime Defense Exhibition and Conference. It is expected to provide a common policy approach and coordinate efforts by state institutions to deal with maritime threats and also maximize Ghana's blue economy. Rosevera Nsia has been providing details.
Objectives, the strategic objectives developed in this document. We have 6 strategic objectives that is going to help implement the document. One is the first one, strategic objective 1 is strengthen the framework for maritime governance. When you talk about framework for maritime governance, we have several laws, but we don't have specific laws, for instance, when it comes to piracy. So this document is we are partnering with the Attorney General Department. They are also part of the technical working group to ensure that Ghana has existing laws. All the frameworks, those that are being implemented by GMA, the Navy, we will all combine them together and have one policy framework so that our laws will be punitive enough to ensure that we have sanity in the maritime sector. So it will ensure safety and security in the maritime domain, ensure we will develop a thriving blue economy, that is our core point. Protect the marine and coastal environment, protect capacity building and research. We also develop dynamic and diversified regional and international cooperation. These are the strategic objectives of the NIMS. These strategic objectives are backed by priority actions. They are not just objectives, but then we have actions assigned to each of the objectives to ensure its implementation. Our vision for the NIMS. We envisage that by 2030, Ghana's maritime space will be the safest. In fact, we don't want to come after any other country. We want Ghana's space, maritime space, to be the safest by 2030. That is the vision of the NIMS, so that we can be able to have a sustainable blue economy developed and maintained for national economic growth. It will also create social benefits, not just about tourism or fishing. The Gulf of Guinea has.
Well, on your election headquarters, we're focusing on the NPP Special Delegate Congress coming up. Let's bring you a report on the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who is optimistic of securing overwhelming vote in return for his loyalty, dedication, and sacrifices for the NPP. We'll bring you details of these and more, plus interactions with persons very high in the party here on the show, delving into the various camps and finding out what they do make of what's coming up on Saturday. Stay with us. We'll bring you more after this.